There's a couple other ways to rig stuff. This is airline cable. You want to pass that around? Airline cable is extremely strong, and if you feel it, it's really rough. It doesn't allow for slippage. Those ridges and the finish that they paint on there actually makes it grip itself, and you can't pull it apart once you put the connectors on there. These are what are called turnbuckles. So if you loosen up these two nuts and slide, this ring right here, you put that airline cable around this ring and then slide both ends of the cable through this turnbuckle. When you tighten these nuts down, you could put this on my tow hitch and trail 3 of the vans with that wire. The wire is extremely strong, and it doesn't slide. So these are, depending on what the aesthetics are, it's going to determine how you're hanging stuff. So if it's like a really fancy church and they just don't want to see like thick chain holding up their speakers or whatever, this is one way to go. They make this in different sizes, obviously, but basically this is what it would look like, and then you put this turnbuckle right on there, and when you tighten that down, it'll hold. It's good to use if it has to be really fancy and really low key. It is a pain in the ass though, because you have to keep it tight and get your measurements right. If you don't make each one of them match, then it's not the same as using chain. Like, you can count out 20 links on a chain, but if you don't tighten this up exactly as you did all the other ones, you're off a little bit, and then you gotta either with an eye bolt try and adjust it or whatever else to make up the difference. They're good. They'll hold just about anything. This one's good for 1,400 pounds because they're threaded. So once you tighten up that thread, it's really hard to back it out once the weight is on there. These are probably the best because anytime we're working in the air, you want to get the weight off your shoulder as quickly as possible. It's easier just to clip that and go. These hold up to 1,200 pounds, I think, for the 3/8 one. So they're, we're never hanging anything that's that heavy. They also make these guys here, which really are turnbuckles. It's basically a way to hang stuff. You can replace these with another eye bolt. That way you don't have to rely on an open hook, or you can fold this closed. But when you use these to hang something, if you need to make adjustments on speakers or whatever, with this connected and this connected, this thing still spins. One of these is reverse threaded. So instead of going out, like instead of turning it clockwise and going in, it's coming out. And the reason for that is this can stay still, this can stay still, and if I keep turning this, it's just going to draw these two pieces together and tighten things up. Then you can adjust without having to go up into the attic, loosen it, pull it up a little bit more. You just turn this thing. So these are really cool. Threaded rod. That's basically what we use for most of the stuff that we do when we're hanging TVs and different things like that from the ceiling. It comes in 10-foot lengths or 20-foot lengths. At Home Depot you can buy even these cute little ones. But basically the same thing. If you're going to hang something, they make couplings for this. So say you have a ceiling that's 35 feet high and you got to drop down, however many feet. They make really long couplings that you can put two pieces together. What you want to do is throw a nut on there first, just to give it a little more meat. When you tighten it, you go about halfway. That way you still have room for the other side. And then when you tighten this up, put a nut on the other side, and it locks it in place. It won't come undone. Then you can extend your rod down further. When hanging, I'll use this as an example. So if you're going to hang something, let's do this. When you're using the eye bolts, throw a nut on there first and bring the nut all the way down to the end. The reason for that is you have to use that lock washer. If you just throw the lock washer on there without this nut, the lock washer is just going to slide up past the threads and it's not doing anything. You need to back it up to something. So throw your nut on there, throw the lock washer on there, throw your regular washer on there, and then whatever it is, I got an L bracket here which conveniently fits on the unistrut. That's what it's really made for. You can put those spring nuts in there, tighten this down, now you have a hanging point, you know. So if this is laying across the steel, you can put an eye bolt in here and hang from this, or you can just put a quick clip through here and hang from that. But when using the bolts, you want to go through and go as far up to the eye bolt as possible, and then throw another washer and a nut on there. You don't need 2 lock washers. It's doing the same thing as the first one. So you throw another nut and washer on there. Always butt it up to it, because we want all of our weight to still be here and not out here. So never tighten it to where the eye bolt is sitting out that far, because now you're relying on this whole shaft to hold all your weight. Over time it's going to bend. So always get it as tight to your hanging point as possible, and you'll be able to double your weight. If you're out here, you're killing all of what this is supposed to do. So the main thing with rigging is just to make sure that everything is tight, everything is secure, and you're using the right sizes. If you have to hang anything over 200 pounds, go with 3/8. Anything less than that, if you're just hanging like a 60-inch TV from a ceiling, you can use 1/4-inch stuff. It's still going to hold, you know, 300-400 pounds. But, you know, as you get up there in weight, it's just better to go with the bigger size, because it'll never come down. I think that's it. There's also different types of brackets that you can use for hanging. So I showed you that window clamp. There's also C-clamps. They make these in hard steel, or these like thin pieces. This is for minimal weight. They do make ones that are like galvanized steel, like that, which will hold a lot more weight. This type comes with threads for 1/4-inch, so you can put a 1/4-inch eye bolt, or if you're just using it as a harness to secure. I had one in here.
Bridle ring?
Yeah, I had a bridle ring somewhere. But a bridle ring, it was in this box, is a, for those of you that don't know, it's just a, basically a, it looks like this. So this is a bridle ring. This thing has 1/4-inch threads. So when you mount that to your steel, you can put this on there, and you can use this to run your wire through. If you have them hanging already, it does have an opening, so you can put your wire through it afterwards. But this is what we have to use on all of our jobs. If we're pulling wire up above the ceiling, none of the clients want to see it laying on the ceiling tile, and it'll fail code if it's an inspected job. So sometimes you can get away with just running wire over stuff if it's an existing job and there's really no way to get up in the ceiling. But basically that's your setup. With the hardened ones, they do have threads in them as well. You can get them with 1/4-inch, 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2-inch holes, and you can hang the bridle rings or a threaded rod or whatever. There's a 5/16, so that won't. And then they also have these guys, which are you hammer them onto the steel. So if this is your, if this is your steel beam, you would put this on here, bang it on. This is meant for like a thin piece of steel, but you would bang that on, and depending on how you put it, you can either use that airline cable, you can use ceiling wire, or you flip it up and bang it on this way, and it's got a threaded hole for the bridle rings. So all different ways to hang stuff. J-hooks, you can use those zip-its or plastic anchors or whatever, toggle bolts. Mount that to this sheetrock up in the ceiling, and it gives you another nice, I like these because the edges are soft, so when you're pulling, it doesn't eat up the wire when you're doing it. So bridle rings and J-hooks are the two main things for running cable. Any questions? I went fast because Mike said hurry up.
We got it.
I think he's
Yeah.
talking to Dave.
Yeah. If you have any questions, just ask me or Chris or X or whoever, Justin, they all know. Let me just show you one last thing. When rigging, a lot of the times,
That stupid slip knot. I was trying to figure out the other day.
that's what I'm gonna show you. When rigging, a lot of the times, if we can't lift the speakers up on our shoulders and get them up high, there's a good knot that you can use that doesn't come undone. The more weight you put on it, the tighter the knot gets, but it'll never slip off. And it's good for pulling wire too. You know, depending on the surface that you're pulling from, you know, what you want to do is just hold one end, and if you make a loop, you know, with the end facing you, the bottom side of the loop, like see how this one comes over and then cross over the top, with the bottom side, slip it over and pull tight. All right, do another one, pull tight. It's called a half hitch. That knot right there, you know, you just tape this down or tie it to whatever. With that knot there, the more you pull, it's just pulling against itself. That loop will keep getting tighter, but it'll never slip off. You could pull a truck, you know, if you were to mount this and tie it to a hitch, the rope will snap before this knot comes off. Somewhere the rope is going to break because the knots just get tighter on themselves. That's the knot you want to use when lifting something up into the air. It's easy to get off because like with certain knots, the tighter you pull them, the tighter the knot gets, but then you can't get it off. You got to cut the rope. You'll never have to cut the rope because no matter how tight you pull, once you're done, as long as you loosen this end, everything comes right apart. You know, it's nice and easy. You'll keep all 100 feet of your rope. You won't end up with like 30 feet of rope to, you know, after every time you cut it. But the good thing is, like when we do the speakers, I came up with another way of getting them up there easier. Is, you know, say this is what we're hanging from and we have an eye bolt that we want to hook our speaker up to, right? What I'll do is I'll put another eye bolt next to it. That way I can get my rope through the eye bolt and you know, pull up and get the speaker as high as I need to, so it's right next to where the one is that I have to clip it to. You know, then you don't have to like get it up there, take the rope off, and then try and catch it real quick. It's still secure. That way, if you slip, the speaker doesn't land on you. You know, that's about it.
Cool. First shot, so it is.
Beer o'clock.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sweating from all this training. Yeah, all this equipment is stuff that we have, so you know, it's not like, you know, anything you need is stuff
So
CSAV provides.
you guys are welcome to run home if you need to